Welcome everyone to the Utah League of Cities and Towns series about life during COVID-19. I'm Cameron Deal, the Executive Director of the Utah League of Cities and Towns. We are thrilled to have you at today's Town Hall. Today's Town Hall is focusing on making the transition to yellow, and it is incredibly timely in light of the Governor's announcement this morning that I will talk about in a moment, as well as live community events. The League has had a task force in collaboration with the Salt Lake Chamber and other groups as we've been working toward how you can have live community events this upcoming summer and make it a summer to remember, but do so under the recommendations that are laid out in the Utah Leads Together plan. We are anticipating that the summer would be a state of yellow, and we will be in a state of yellow effective this Saturday. So again, very timely conversation today. Before I turn it over to my colleague, John Park, who will be managing the panel, I wanted to give you a quick update on what the governor announced this morning. The state of Utah has been in a state of orange that expires Friday night at midnight and effective Saturday morning at 12:01 a.m. Most of the state will move to yellow. As we move to yellow, if I had a yellow and orange tie, I would have worn it because there still will be portions of the state that will be in orange. The areas of the state that will continue at orange are 3 counties and then 2 cities. The 3 counties are Grand County, Summit County, and Wasatch County. And the 2 cities that will continue at orange are Salt Lake City and West Valley City. So for those 5 jurisdictions, they will continue at orange. Everybody else will move to yellow. Here's why. The governor explained this morning that the decision to transition from orange to yellow is based on positive health data and positive data trends. He feels like that the negative health data has plateaued, and the data includes the transmission rate of COVID-19, our hospital capacity around the state, the tracing and testing capacity around the state, and the exposure source, including hotspots. So that is why the State Commission and the governor feel comfortable moving from orange to yellow in all parts of the state except for Grand County, Summit County, Wasatch County, Salt Lake City, and West Valley City. There are some other municipalities that have requested moving or staying in orange. At this point, though, those are the 5 jurisdictions that will still be in orange. The governor emphasized it's up to us. If we want to continue in yellow and eventually move to green, it's up to us to take the recommendation seriously, which is in part the reason for this town hall. Before I turn over to John, let me explain one other data point that we do not yet have ready today, but we will have ready for you next week, and that is the confidence of the public in engaging in community events like we'll discuss today. The League is participating and commissioned a portion of a Y2 analytics survey, and we will have data from that survey at the beginning of next week around the confidence level and the comfort level of residents to attend live events. So that'll be one piece that'll come out next week that's critical for you to remember as you are organizing these events. As a reminder, if you have questions over the next hour or so, feel free to put them in the chat box. We will be monitoring the chat box. John Park will be moderating the panel. He'll be watching it. I'll be watching it as well as League staff, and we'll either answer your question directly in the chat box, bring it up to the panelists, or follow up with you afterward. So with that, John, those are my announcements for today. It's a fascinating day. It's an exciting day. It's the second to last full day of orange statewide. And with that, John Park, my trusted colleague, who has been handling our COVID-related trading, I turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Cameron. We are all excited to be going to yellow. That's a big time, and hopefully we just keep continuing to green and looking forward. We have, I think, a great town hall for you today. Katie Harley's from our League of Cities and Towns team has put together a wonderful group that has been working on best practices as it comes to events and festivals and all things group related, I think, as it's related to some of the restrictions we're under. And they've done a lot of work, and in fact, they will have a document available that I think in the next day or so, we'll be able to get out to all of you. So to get started today, we have five members of our panel, and they'll each take about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll ask them questions and go on from there. First, we're going to hear from Annalisa Harrison. She's Civic Events Coordinator, Saratoga Springs. I talked to her city manager yesterday, and he was just bragging her up. She's going to talk about, she's also the chairman of the Association of Civic Events Coordinators of Utah. She's going to talk about what Saratoga Springs is doing and some of the other members of that association are doing around the state. And then we're honored to have Crystal Otterstrom with us. She's the executive director of the Utah Cultural Alliance. She's going to share some numbers kind of impact, some of the things that her team members are doing, and some of the really kind of unique difficulties that they're running into with some of the professional associations, and how not only they're handling it, but a lot of other cities throughout the country are trying to, around the county, are trying to do to help the arts. And then we have a representative, Jim Dunnigan. Jim is in the State House, represents District 39, that's Taylorsville and Kearns. But the exciting thing, he's also the chairman of Taylorsville Days in Taylorsville. I just love the fact that he's an elected official and is taking part and getting involved in his communities. And he's going to specifically talk about what they're planning for Taylorsville Days. And then Natalie Domino is with South Jordan, the city of South Jordan. She's in charge of the Soho Summerfest that they have every year, and she's going to share some of her ideas for that. And lastly, we have Mayor Julie Fulmer from the town of Vineyard. They celebrate Heritage Days, and they're taking a little different twist on that this year. And these are some of the plans that she'll present, some of the plans that they have. So let's just have Annalisa just take off. And Annalisa, let's go.
All righty. I'm going to share my screen if possible. This is the first time I've really done this, so we'll see if I do it right. So our goal, our team, was to encourage our citizens to practice social distancing, but also give them some fun activities, some fun ideas of things that they can do with their families while they're able to be able to keep everyone safe. So our City Days is normally, it's linked with the second weekend of June. And so we had no idea where we were going to be at by that point. And so we decided to run our City Days virtually this year. And then hopefully either at the end of summer or maybe the beginning of fall, whenever we're back into green, to be able to do kind of a minimized event that's a little bit smaller than we normally do, because normally do a huge week-long event that still plugs in a lot of those fun activities that our citizens look forward to each year. With that, we're going to be doing a goose chase contest throughout that normal week that we would be doing our city celebration. And along with that, one of the events that we do annually do is a chalk art contest, and we are planning on doing that still, but encouraging citizens just to go do it on, their driveway type thing. And then we'll be sharing those images on our city social media. We also, in April, to give our kids something fun to do, our youth council actually put together a Kahoot challenge, and we advertised that through social media, gave them the challenge pins that they would need to go in, and we had about 300 kids participate in an hour. And so we were pretty excited. And so now our royalty is planning on doing those just throughout the rest of the summer. We also are going to be doing an exercise art competition that we actually kind of stole from another city in ACE-CO. They had the idea and we thought it was super fun. And so found out from them how to run it. And we're going to go ahead and run that, which is essentially someone can plan their route on Strava, things like that. They can run it, ride it, bike it, walk it with their family, and then they'll turn in that map to us, and we'll be giving away prizes with that. And then another virtual event that we're planning on doing is a Search for Saratoga event, just highlighting some local businesses and giving away prizes for that. And you can see, I went to ACE-CO to find what some other cities were doing for virtual events. And one of the cities had mentioned a virtual talent show. I couldn't remember which city that was, and they actually didn't reach back out to me. So I just kind of put that up the top. But you can see some of these other virtual events. I tried to group them under the cities. So if it's something you're interested in trying out, you could reach out to that city and find out how they did it and what has seemed to work for them. Highland City is doing a Kahoot night, and they traditionally do an essay contest that they kind of had to tweak a little bit with the fourth graders this year. Harriman City is kind of rocking it. They have a lot of really fun things that they're doing online. Some things that we're thinking of maybe implementing this summer too, like the online bingo, weekly art classes, which Spanish Fork is doing something similar with that, doing a digital art class that kids can log into and see. Let's see, they're doing a fitness challenge, and there are a lot of other cities that are doing different fitness challenges or virtual 5Ks and 10Ks. And then they're doing an online princess party that I'm curious to see how that will work, because that sounds like it'll be pretty neat. We know Provo City already successfully did a drive-in movie that went really well for them. And so a lot of our cities are looking at maybe trying to implement some things like that, since we're probably not going to be able to do our normal outdoor movies where people can go and sit down on the grass with their families to watch movies. And then West Jordan, again, a lot of us use able to do that to see how that works. Some non-virtual events that we're doing. So we are planning on moving forward with our food truck rally. We were actually planning on doing that in Orange. One of the ways that we were going to do that was, typically that rally takes place in one large city park. We were actually going to split it up amongst 3 parks throughout the city. And encourage online ordering and social distancing, and just encouraging people to go down to the food trucks, pick up their food, and then take it back home to stay safe. Another event that we're trying to put together, it's really in the early stages. We're calling it our pop-up sweets and treats shops. One of the things that we've been hearing from vendors that we use quite a bit at different city celebrations, that they provide the sweets, right? The snow cones, the cotton candy, caramel popcorn, those kinds of things. They've been really kind of struggling and have reached out to us. And so we thought we would do kind of Wednesday afternoons, just randomly each week. We would announce on Sunday evening, this is where the pop-up sweets and treat shops will be, and they would just pop up in a different park throughout the city, that moms could walk down to that park, get their kids a treat, and then again, just take those things back home. But it might give them a reason to get out of the house, and also be able to help some of these vendors that aren't able to make their rounds through all of the different city celebrations. Again, that's in its very early stages. We haven't completely worked out all the logistics for it, but it's something we're trying to flesh out at this time. And then we also add a holiday. We traditionally have a holiday home decorating contest, encouraging our citizens to drive around and look at the different lights and things that are available during the holiday season in our city. And we are doing something similar. It's our Beautify Saratoga Yard contest, that we're encouraging people to do the same thing. Go on a nice drive one evening, look at the different homes yards, and then go online and vote for that. Some of the things that some of the cities are doing, Highland City actually did a very successful drive-by parade for nursing homes and care centers, where they were able to kind of sit out in front, and then people drove by and waved to them and provided them something to do, which I think is pretty neat. They're looking to do some drive-in movie nights. A reverse parade, I'm not going to go into too much about that, because that idea came from Natalie with South Jordan, and so I'm going to let her highlight that. And then they are also looking to do a community food drive service project, which I think is awesome. We are, with our Goose Chase, we're trying to figure out some sort of community service project that our citizens can participate in with our city celebration. Harriman has a lot of different fun things that they're doing kind of to get people out of their houses. Food truck nights. They're also looking at a reverse parade, a drive-through car show, which I'm intrigued by. And then a fireworks show at the end of May, where people will be able to stay home and watch. I also thought it was kind of a fun idea to how they're going to have a viewing party with highlights from last year's rodeo, where they're maybe not going to be able to do that this year. Spanish Fork has been pretty creative in being able to hold their Miss Spanish Sport pageant to provide that scholarship money to girls this year. And they're going to be holding it at a reception center, only allowing a few people with each contestant to come and attend, and they'll be streaming it on their local TV station. I spoke with Emily about this today, and she had mentioned that if people didn't have a local TV station, they could always Facebook Live it or something like that. And then Bluffdale is looking to do a car show parade through neighborhoods, which also seems like a really fun idea. We did a bunny parade where we split up our city in 4 different quadrants and had the Easter Bunny drive through, and it was a huge, huge success. So I'm sure that will also be pretty popular. And they're looking, she had mentioned something about drive-in bingo, which intrigues me, and a scavenger hunt. One of the other things in our community that we've been doing on a PR side of things is we found that there's a lot of confusion. What does orange mean? What does yellow mean? And so we, our PIO has actually created some infographics that we have on the front page of our website, and we have it on our Facebook page pinned to the top, that just kind of shows this is the basic information about these things when it comes to face masks or recreation or events, just to kind of help our citizens be able to understand a little bit of that. And then we also have links to the the state's document, that if they want to dig deeper in to that information, they can. So that's kind of some of the stuff that I've been able to get from ACECO. We're pretty excited about trying to look at things outside of the box and provide fun things for families to be able to do, to recreate together, to get outside, but yet still, you know, keep everybody safe, follow those social distancing guidelines, and just provide some fun for this summer. And that's about all I got at this point.
Annalisa, thank you so much. I'd just like to remind everyone that if you have questions, just type it in the chat box. If you raise your hand, we can't have you ask the question. So if you have some questions, just type it in the chat box. So Crystal, let's go.
All right, I'm going to share my screen too. Can you guys see my slides?
Yeah.
We got it.
Great. So as Todd said, my name is Crystal Young-Otterstrom. I lead Utah Cultural Alliance. We're the Industry Association for Art, Humanities, Film, Museums, and Entertainment. And I thought I'd tell you just a little bit about us. We're actually a mixture of nonprofits and for-profits. So we're not just nonprofits like the Symphony or Thanksgiving Point or the Zoo. We're also for-profits like galleries, photography studios, graphic design, architecture, film production, etc. fall under our bandwidth. And we represent about 300 of these businesses who employ around 100,000 people between them. And then another around 1,000 individual kind of artists and musicians are members too. I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about kind of the impact on this industry. And then I'm going to talk through how several of our members have implemented the guidelines to be able to open up either their events or their facilities or static places such as museums. So first, as you can expect, like every industry, the impact is humongous on everybody, but particularly those of us in services and hospitality. The aggregate loss is $55 million. And I glossed over, I'm going to say this is a survey that several of our state agencies put together, state service agencies put together, 7 of us. We had around 700 businesses respond, which is actually a small sliver of the market. So while these numbers are quite huge, we know that the impact is even larger. So 55 million in losses, 1,600 jobs terminated, another 4,000 and more counting every day in jeopardy. Cam mentioned that y'all are working on some surveying of comfort for audiences. There's been a number of national studies that indicate that audiences do want to come back to venues. And we've been working on some local studies too, as well as some of our individual members. Hale Center Theater Standing, for instance, their audience has said 60% of them will show up the second they open their doors. And we're seeing a lot of numbers like that, but certainly a vaccine makes people the most safe, but limited venue capacity, spacing, mask wearing, sanitizing, et cetera, makes them feel more comfortable without that. So I'm going to go through kind of the employer guidelines and then the actual event and our guidelines and how my members have translated this into their day-to-day operations. So with the employer guidelines, of course, that means disinfecting high-touch surfaces. As far as events go, nearly all of them are planning on disinfecting every single seat after it's been sat in, which is a pretty tough order. Frequent staff walking around, their staff are wearing masks and gloves. There's been a lot of questions about rehearsal and preparation, and we've been encouraging people to think of it as the decreasing circle that's within the employer guidelines. So 6 feet where you can, mask wearing where less than 6 feet is difficult, and daily symptom checking when that's not possible. We've also helped our orgs with the supply chain. So like many of the industry associations, we've worked together to establish supply chains of PPE. So if that's something any of your events need help with, you can reach out to me. And of course, many are continuing to encourage remote working by staffing through the summer. When it comes to implementing the guidelines, and in the current state for events, cultural, arts, and entertainment, there's not a huge difference between orange and yellow in terms of what our actual guidelines are. Always subject to change. It's a listing document, but now it's 6 foot spacing between household groups. I want to emphasize it's not 10 feet. There was an early version of the phasing guidelines that said 10 feet. It was a drafting error. It is 6 feet because I have seen a few cities and counties saying 10 feet, but it's 6 feet. And so translating that into practice, it means killing seats if it's a static seated venue, or marked queuing, having marked viewing spaces. So like if you go to Hogle Zoo, which is open, they have 6 foot dots pointed into their painted into their viewing areas so that you can kind of gauge how far apart you are from the others. Signage, the event guidelines don't require necessarily directional flow like the retail guidelines do, but many of our museums, galleries, botanical, and zoos are doing that anyway as a way of helping to encourage that 6 feet spacing, as well as staggered admission time. So maybe coming into the venue at staggered windows. Like if you go to Thanksgiving Point right now, you're going to sign up for maybe like a 1:30 p.m. entry. In terms of events, they're doing that in terms of maybe staggering when people enter the theater. Many of them are doing special hours in seating areas for high-risk individuals to make them feel safer, of course, limiting contact, and they're interpreting that between, contactless pay, ticket scanning, screens, etc. As far as avoiding congregating, again, helping mark 6 feet spaces, maybe in their lobby or throughout the, a lot of the summer events that my members have are at outdoor amphitheaters, so maybe marking off kind of 6 foot household spacing locations. A lot of them are skipping intermission and making smaller performances so that there's less moving around. In terms of going above, we've kind of encouraged our members to think of the guidelines as a minimum and not a maximum to really help their visitors feel safe. So the guidelines encourage digital programs and ticketing. It's not required, but a lot of them are going that route, or limiting what's handed out in a parade or other festival. I have not seen any require mask wearing yet. Most of them are encouraging it. There's a gallery opening tomorrow that's requiring mask wearing. We'll see if they get any pushback on that or not. And I know that some of our organizations are considering incentivizing it, so maybe offering a discount if someone wears a mask so it doesn't feel as much like a mandate. A lot of them are implementing temperature taking at entry points, mostly through infrared thermometers, regular testing of cast crew and staff if they can arrange it. Some of them are planning on, if they have out-of-state performers and crew coming in, self-quarantining them for 14 days before they start the rehearsal process. Controlled exits and entry, so guiding people in one row at a time, or are not. And for some events and venues, controlled entering and exiting makes no sense, but for some of them it does. Contact tracing is something that I know that the state is really concerned about. Kind of the two sacrosanct things are the 6 feet and contact tracing for if people are there. There's a lot of complications around that, but what our members are trying to do is a typical MO for us is they may only know the name and the contact information for a person buying a group of tickets or admissions if they only bought them in advance, like either by phone or online. And then at the door, it's usually cash, or even with a card, they're not capturing contact information. So a lot of them are going with only online sales, no at the door sales. That also helps with the contactless entry so that, you know, it's a ticket that can just be scanned or a phone that can just be scanned. A lot of places that do general admission are moving to assigned seating, and for places that are hills and not, you know, seated numbered seats, they're kind of creating areas where someone can move in. And I'll talk about why, another reason why they're doing that beyond contact tracing. Some galleries, you know, which are essentially retail spaces, and again, this is a going above and beyond thing. It's not something they're required to do, but some of them are asking for name and contact information at the door or doing by appointment only. And it's all part of them trying to avoid kind of that PR scandal of did they contribute to spread, and then of course more enclosures. And I'm going to repeat this again, but what we're encouraging our members to look at is 2-year plans of, or what does orange, yellow, green, and red look like for our organizations, because it's likely not to just be a one direction flow of red to green. We're likely to have some back and forth over time until the vaccine emerges. And so we're the organizations who are already open now or are announcing June shows, there's even some with May shows, amazingly enough. These are the orgs that the second they shut down, they made plans for what reopening looked like instead of waiting to see what the guidelines would be. And they created a few scenarios. And so once they saw what the guidelines are, and every time the guidelines change, they already have plans for how they address it and what that means in their day-to-day operations. Some of the challenges that I'm sure a lot of y'all are facing is a 6 feet spacing between household groups typically equates to 20% of inventory for an enclosed space. And so it's really hard to make that work financially. For some of them, it's just better to stay shut and not make revenue, whereas for others, they can't survive without revenue. So some of my members are hunkering down until green, but the ones who are not are looking at cutting production costs, so maybe limiting sets, costumes, tech, etc., increasing admission prices to account for that loss of inventory. Some of them are looking at moving into larger facilities, but negotiating a similar rent. So, you know, maybe they're in a 500-seat venue, which shut down is, you know, so many seats are, I don't do math in my head, I'm an art person, but by going into a larger venue, then suddenly they have more seats available to them than they would have had in their original venue. Another big issue is some of our national unions and professional associations that exist in our world either aren't offering contracts until every state is open for purposes of fairness, or aren't issuing contracts until they themselves have created their own public health standards that they then want these organizations to implement. And so that has impacted some of our organizations that had planned to open this summer. Another issue, especially for our for-profit concert venues, is a lot of these big talent agencies and big acts are refusing to tour until 2021. And so even though technically they can open, they're having difficulty having the talent to be able to put on the stage. This would be for events. So ways of addressing that is some of them are going local, some of them are shutting down when they had planned to open. Another issue, of course, is sometimes their staff and performers who they've furloughed or laid off don't want to come back because of the increase in employment what many of our industries are facing. So they are increasing pay to try to attract them back. And some of them don't want to go around the unions and stick with local contacts. So that they're just having to figure out ways of making their revenue online, perhaps in other ways. Another thing that's been challenging is communities that have guidelines that are different from the state. It's not a big deal when there's communities at different colors, but sometimes they might have some rules or guidelines on top of what's in the state, and that's difficult for planning. Sometimes also maybe we are in orange or yellow, but they just can't actually rent their government space. The size restriction issue has also been a sticking point. The state's guideline is pretty clear. Private social interactions that occur without oversight by a formal organization are allowable in groups of 20 or fewer. They've been really clear in communicating that the size restrictions, if you have this formal oversight, you're following these guidelines, you can have more than 20 people, you can have more than 500 people if you can make these guidelines work. The other issue is the PR. There's a lot of orgs who want to open, they need the revenue, but they're afraid of, they're less afraid of the legal liability, but more afraid of what happens with negative PR if someone gets sick at their venue. So that's something that none of us can really help them with, but increased contact tracing efforts are helping them. And again, the 2-year plan, you know, too many of my orgs are saying, well, I'm just gonna hunker down until green, and maybe green happens this summer, maybe it doesn't, maybe we have a fall flare up. So it really is time to get creative about how does that 6 feet spacing and these other guidelines, how can you make them work financially? I just want to let you guys know of a few resources. So downplayingutah.com is a statewide calendar. We're tracking virtual events, who's opened both events wise, that's the reopening, and then open places is things like museums and zoos. COVID-19 is canceled and postponed events, and then the PPE page is where you can order PPE. And I'm going to wrap up here, but you know, everybody's budgets are hurting. Your budgets are hurting as much as our budgets are hurting, but there are cities and counties around the state who are working on relief. And for some of that, that is things like the small business loans and grants that we've already seen. For others, it's working on maybe some more public art and mural making opportunities, or increasing their busking opportunities and making it so people aren't congregating less than 6 feet, but helping to employ musicians and things. You know, looking at, are there rules that are making it hard to open? And we want to help you, because these events yield sales tax too, and help with all of our budgets. So with that, I will leave it with events and fun and places are possible, even with guidelines, but it's our creativity that's the only thing that's stopping us, and there's ways to get creative and make it work.
Thank you. So well done. Thank you very much, Crystal. Jim, Representative Dunnigan, would you take it away and talk about your city events?
You bet. I chair the Taylorsville Day celebration in Taylorsville City, which is in Salt Lake County. This year we celebrate the 24th anniversary of our city, which is quite a few years, but I know for some of the cities and towns, you'll say you're just getting started. It's normally a 3-day event. We attract over 20,000 people. And because of the virus, it's impacting us and changing things significantly. So one of the things that we're going to be doing throughout the summer is having a movie in the park starting in June. And we get maybe a couple hundred people to that. And we have an outdoor venue which can be adequately controlled and social distance, but we're looking forward to that. We normally have a 5K. This year we're doing a virtual 5K. People will register and pay online, and then they have a week to run the course and report their times. And then the Monday after the last Saturday to run the course, they'll go to City Hall. We'll have a tent set up there, and they'll be given a bag with their T-shirt and other little goodies in it. So it's kind of run it on your own schedule. Under the current yellow, it allows parades. So we have been thinking and making preparations for a parade, but under the 4.3 guidelines that I just got today, they're not going to allow any temporary mass gathering permits. And so in Salt Lake County, that means if you have more than 500 people, you have to get a temporary mass gathering permit. That's going to be prohibited. It is prohibited under the guidelines under 4.3. And so in yellow, we will not be able to do a parade. We've been working with the league. I've been working with the league work group as well as folks from the governor's office trying to figure out what we can do. But with his new guidelines today of no mass gathering permits under yellow, that's going to change things significantly for us, because we thought we could do some things that now we will not be able to do. So right now we're still in a bit of a waiting pattern. Our event's the last weekend in June. So it's 6 weeks out, which seems really close, but in the virus, things change every 2 weeks. And so we're hoping that things continue to improve, and we're going to keep monitoring this and seeing what the commission comes up with on their guidelines and just keep adjusting to those. So right now we're doing some movies in the park and some other smaller community events, as well as a virtual 5K, and canceling much of the rest.
Jim, so is that mass gathering permit excluding a Salt Lake County thing only, as far as you know?
Statewide. So
Okay.
it's come out in the guidelines. You know, we have the 4.0 and the 4.1.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I got the 4.3 today, and we had talked to the governor's folks. We have a work group that's been working on this earlier in the week, and they've come out officially that no, under yellow, no temporary mass gathering permits are permitted. And so whatever the requirement is to get a mass gathering in your county, is going to be prohibited.
Okay.
So for, you may have a county that you don't have to get a mass gathering until you have 1,000. They have another requirement in there on the number of people, but basically it's no temporary mass gathering permits, and that's going to apply statewide. Now that's anyway, to answer your question.
Okay. Great. Anything else, Jim? Or
My report.
great. Now we'll turn to Natalie Domino, Special Events Coordinator, City of South Jordan, and talk about Sojo Summerfest. Natalie.
Yes, it is Sojo.
I knew that.
I'm going to share my screen here. So this one we have, it's our city's summer celebration is called Sojo Summerfest. And this year we're doing a bunch of adjusted and alternative activities for that. I've got 3 bigger activities and then a bunch of smaller activities. It's normally an event that runs about 3 to 4 days, but this year we're doing it across the whole week, and activities every day, some big, some small, some that run the whole week. The first one we're calling Summerfest in a Box. This is a box that people can come to our drive-up location. They drive through, they show us that they're a resident, and they can pick up one of these boxes. And the idea is that they can take it home and they can do some activities with their families. And we've got different boxes for different age groups and different family sizes. Each box is actually designed for a family of 5. So if you have more than 5 people in your family, you would get 2 boxes. If you have more than 10, you would get 3 boxes. And we're going to advertise these before and have signs up there so they can choose which box they want and which one will work best for their family. So this one we're doing on Monday to kick off the week. And the idea is that they'll take it home. They'll send us pictures of them playing with the box and what they created and what they did. And just have a lot of fun, kind of like a take-home event was the idea on this. Our next one, we are doing the reverse parade. We're calling it Floatin' Floats. We didn't want a lot of people handing stuff out, but we still wanted our residents to kind of get a treat like they do get candy at a parade. So we've worked with a food truck, Soda Cheesy, and they're bringing 2 of their trucks and they're handing out the root beer floats. So everyone that comes will get a root beer float at no cost to them. And I've kind of like put up this is our current map right here. And I wanted to kind of share this because I know that a lot of other cities have been wanting to do this. And so I wanted to go over the logistics of what we're working out and what's going to work best for us. So basically, people are going to drive in at 2 locations. We've got this one right here down at the bottom of my screen, and then this one over here. These are 2 separate roads, 2 different access locations, and they'll drive along these internal roads, like into our park, and then everyone's going to come and meet over here. And then once they get here, like every other car is going to go a different way. And then on our parade, this orange line represents everything that's going to be on display. So we've got our float. A couple of other cities have said that they'll bring their floats. We've got a couple of politicians that said that they'll decorate something and bring it. No one can hand anything out except for us at the beginning. We're going to play music. We're going to make it fun. And then once they come through, like while they're eating the root beer floats, they'll see the floats, hence the name. They will exit here, go back onto, this is Redwood Road right here. We're working on closing off the right-hand lane in Redwood so that they can do a right turn out of here and traffic won't back up through here. And so this is going to be like, if a different city decides to do it, it's obviously going to be different, but this is the best way that we figured out how to make it work for us and our location. Our next bigger event is called Best in Sojo Pet Show. This is, people can just upload pictures and videos of their pets. It's meant to be fun and silly. We've got different categories. Our best interview is going to be like, they do like a voiceover for their pet, like do a funny voice for their pet and answer questions like their pet would. At the end, when we get all of those collected, we are going to have our mayor, Don Ramsey, and Mrs. Utah 2020 host an awards show, and then we'll like play the top 5 videos or pictures from each category and then announce the winners. And then we're going to air that or just put it up on our website on Saturday morning so people can watch that as a Saturday morning activity. And then also the first 200 people that enter are going to receive a pet bandana just in the mail that we're going to mail to them. So that one's one that I'm really excited for. I think it's going to be fun. Yeah, and actually this one I'm hoping to be able to keep doing even after we're out of this COVID-19 everything. I think it can be fun that we can create and move into the future. These are some of our smaller events that we're doing. We are doing a goose chase app. We're calling it a historical quest so that people can visit different historic locations throughout our city and learn about them. We're also doing a selfie bingo. They download a card online, take selfies of themselves doing different things on the card to get a bingo, and then upload those. And then we'll just choose random winners every day and mail them a fun little prize. Chalk art, we're having our chalk artists that register to participate do it on a trail in one of our parks. And then once they're finished, people can walk the trail and see the chalk art. So it's not a lot of people coming together, but more like they can see it in person, which we really wanted to make. We are also doing a virtual craft market. All of our craft vendors, they can apply online to be in it. We're not charging a fee, but we are asking them to offer a discount to their online craft shop during the week of Summerfest. And we've asked them, they get to set the discount. We're just asking them to do whatever they can. And then they'll just use the code Summerfest for their discount code. So anyone that visits their shop from ours will get that discount. We like it because we can offer our citizens a discount, and we can also help like the craft vendors and other people, kind of keep their businesses going. The last smaller event that we're doing is a mermaid craft. I have a picture of that here. We filmed it last week. We have 2 mermaids that we normally have come and swim in our pool. For Summerfest, they got together and they did some mermaid sparkly Play-Doh. They did a video of how to do that. And then they did some songs at the end. So that we'll put up on probably Facebook Live or Facebook somehow. Yeah, or just on our website. That is just about all from me. And I've listed my contact information if anyone wants more details on these events. Ours is the first week in June, and so we've kind of had to like scramble and get everything ironed out, and we're just about ready to go as far as like working out the details and how everything's going to work. So we're in a pretty good spot as far as like answering questions and stuff like that. And that's it.
Great, thank you so much, Natalie. And so Mayor Fulmer is the mayor of Vineyard here in Utah County. I think the fastest growing city, as far as I know, in the whole world. Mayor, are you here? Go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, let me try to share my screen. Let's see. So if I push share, it shows this thing. How did you guys do it? Did you just click desktop?
I picked the document. It brought up a screen where I was able to go in and pick the document that I was wanting to share. That's what worked for me.
Okay, well, it's not letting me do it, so I'm going to read it to you. Okay, so everything I have to present is pretty similar to everyone else, but our goal was to just keep the community feeling united, supporting local businesses, and then supporting the public health system. So the first phase we did was we did a survey to see how our city would like to participate and how our businesses would like to participate. And what we recognized was if we could make our events a little bit smaller, more spaced, and fit the situation of our attendees, we would be the most successful. So we have a Heritage Days, and it's about 3 days long. There's several events. There's concerts, fireworks, petting zoo, carnival, art galleries. And something that we decided to do was move some of our bigger events to August and then break the rest of the events up through the summer so that people could still attend them. So we'll have a concert in the park, and then people will be able to like bring their own blanket and social distance from people at the concert, just little things like that. Some of our other venues that are coming, they typically ask for people to buy tickets, so there's this limited participation. And another thing they do is do the staggered entry that someone else mentioned. So that's kind of how we were engaging the smaller sizes, which would allow for that additional space for people to move around. And then just situational, our goals are similar to everyone else, where we provide a physical event, but then we make virtual attendance possible. So we had a Mayrathon where people had a whole month to participate with the Strava app and kind of do the marathon that other people are doing. And then you can go out and you can actually participate physically, or you can do it from your home and run on a treadmill and send in kind of what you've done. And so we're just kind of doing that for all of our things. If we have a concert in the park, we'll live stream it and let people continue to stay in their homes so that people can feel the most comfortable during that time. Another thing we're doing is that we have a little group in our city we call our work task force. And what they're doing is they're creating community events within smaller portions of the community. So some of the things we've done are bike to businesses, hosting food trucks, movie nights, dance parties on people's driveways, chalk the block on people's driveways, where people reverse parades. We've had several successful reverse parades, also reverse parades for graduations. And what we're doing is investing in these community events because they're smaller, people feel more comfortable, they can social distance. And so that's been fairly successful. And then we've just taken kind of all our events and used those 3 S's, just smaller, spaced, and then situational. And then let's see. And then the same as you guys, we're just recommending and encouraging best practices, allowing for that physical virtual participation. We've done trainings and we have our exits and entrances planned out. And then just that's kind of where we're at with our best practices, and liability and first aid response are pretty standard with how we're planning everything. But yeah, I can't say more than this whole group has said, so thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mayor. Just one question for the panel. You've talked about, and maybe I missed it, but what about fireworks, or what are you doing about fireworks for your festivals, I guess?
We're hoping to do them later in the year. That's been kind of our answer, that if we can do something either at the end of summer or maybe in fall for our citizens, we'll do it then.
So you're basically delaying that portion of it. What about Taylorsville Days, Representative?
So we have a good fireworks show, and I'm still hopeful to do it. But if we're in yellow with these new guidelines that came down today, you're not going to be able to have more than 1,000 people. And even with social distancing, they're not allowing that. So that's
Going to be difficult, is what you're
it's
saying.
probably going to be impossible to do. I'm hoping for green.
We're continuing to do our fireworks show because of our size, because we feel like people could come to the park, but they could also watch it from their houses.
Yeah, you're very condensed in Vineyard, so that's good. Okay, Representative Dunnigan mentioned 4.3, which is part of the Utah Leads Together 2.0 document. We will send that out on our daily email today. And if we could ask all the presenters to just forward to Katie their presentation, we'll also make that available to all the members that receive that email. So thank you again for your time. Now let's turn to, we created a task force between the League of Cities and Towns, the UAC, Association of Governments, of Counties, Utah Association of Counties, and we wanted to put together a document that was kind of a spin-off of a town hall we had a couple of weeks ago, and really put some best practices or best thoughts of how to create a safe workplace environment in your city hall offices and those type of things. And as we were looking at that, I reached out to a good friend of mine, David Kitchen. David's the HR director of Lehigh City, and he's also the president of the Utah chapter of IPMA HR. That's the International Public Management Association for Human Resources. And what I found out is how they're already interacting with their folks on a weekly basis and getting those things done and having those discussions. So they put together a guideline that will be available to us in the next day or so. But David, would you just take a few minutes and talk about some of the things you're doing with that?
Yeah, sure can. And thanks, John, for having us on. And just to be brief about IPMA HR, this is a professional HR association for just the public sector. So HR affects every organization, every business has it, right? But there are some unique rules and situations that apply just for the public sector. And this is not more clear than right now during the pandemic, where some of the legislation that's come down affects public sector differently than private sector. And so what we try to do at IPMA HR is to be that go-to resource for your HR professionals. We have over 60 members across the state. We cover the whole state. We have right now weekly conference calls that we can discuss situations or anything about HR, from hiring to investigations to compensation, furloughs, all of that we can cover. And we have some great resources, and we have connections to the national level. So not only do we compare within the state, we have group calls with mid to large cities across the nation and learn and share resources together. So it is a really great organization to be a part of, and I'm happy to share resources. So John, like John said, you came to us and said, we need some best practices and guidelines on transitioning from not only orange to yellow, but from yellow to green. And so myself and some other HR directors across the state in the last couple of weeks, we came together and not only looked at what the state guidelines are for the risk levels, but then tried to take that kind of from the 30,000 foot level down to maybe the 5,000 foot level, with the caveat that best practices are not always best for you practices. So we're recommending that you take these guidelines in considerations, but you take those back to your organization, and either with your management committee or whatever internal communication or emergency management team that you have, you can sift through these recommendations, but then come up with a plan what works for you. We realize that we're all different. Some of us are very large organizations, some of us are very small, and we're wearing many hats. But come up with a solution that works for you and that you're comfortable with. So I'll give you a sneak peek of that document now. And like John said, we'll make this available. But the goal is to be comprehensive. So there's some basic recommendations in the beginning. And personally, I'll just spend a minute on that this pandemic is not only a health event, but it really is affecting, it gets to the core of kind of the human beings. Human beings are meant to be together, community driven, and the physical distancing that's the guidelines that we've all followed makes that really difficult to create that connection. And so as we just listened to at the events, I think those are great ways to build that community even while maintaining physical distancing. So I'm not going to go through the whole document here. There's quite a bit of recommendations and things you can see. But we try to walk you through or provide resources that you can cover things that matter to your public employees. A lot of these public employees have still been working. In Lehigh City, we have a power utility and we have water utility, and those functions have been operating the whole time. And so maybe some of those employees, it's the status quo, except with more PPE. And so each department is going to be different. We have our administrative function that most of us are working from home still, and that might change in the next week or so, but there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for your organization, and that's critical to meet together and discuss. We also recommend or included recommendations for situations where individuals may feel differently about what their comfort is. Some employees want to come back to work. Some employees are not ready to come back to work. And one of the silver linings in this is many organizations have adapted and using technology for their benefit. So there are places within Lehigh City, even though we can come back to work, we may have staggered shifts because we also have some space issues that we are growing rapidly and we need more space at City Hall. So we're looking at creative solutions to leverage this technology and leverage this experience that we've been successful working from home and still providing services at the same time. Coming from HR, we love all the city leaders to come to HR and use us as your resource. That's what we're here. We're a support function. And so if you have questions, if you have situations that you don't know what to do, give us a call, send us an email, and use us. We're not health experts, but we know how to get information. We're not unemployment specialists, but we have connections. Just a couple weeks ago, we had one of the department managers from the Department of Workforce Services explain to us very clearly what they're doing for the unemployment benefits. So we can get you in contact with the right people, not only for the employees, but also for you as organizational leaders. We have recommendations on internal communications teams. One of these topics about symptom checking and do we test our employees? That's really going to depend on your organization. We have some guidelines and some things for you to consider. There's also some legalities. The EEOC has said that we can test symptoms and do health checks for employees, but that is still private information, not to be shared with other employees. Lehigh City is also looking to incentivize antibody testing. So we have a wellness program, and employees have to earn so many wellness points throughout the year. We are incentivizing antibody testing and giving them not only a wellness point for going and doing that, which is covered by our insurance provider through PEHP, but we're also including a raffle drawing for additional bonuses at work for those that complete that, just to help our effort in tracing and testing for COVID-19. So from here, the rest of the document are tables of specific areas, different columns of high risk, moderate risk, and low risk, and even looking forward to normal risk. And this is a collaboration effort between many of not only city managers, but also HR directors, that we like to think of ourselves as kind of a pulse on the employees in the different departments. And so we've gone to, as you can see, there's there's many guidelines and things. There's resources like canva.com that can help with signage. What are some things to consider when you have a point of sale, whether that's utility billing, whether that's at a snack bar, at a rec center, or an outdoor facility. Many of these things we've already seen in the private sector, which is great, and we can copy those, but maybe there's some uniqueness that we need to consider for our organization, either the flow of how customers get through the facility, or whatever it may be. So I'm not going to go through here. We'll provide the link to the document that the league will send out. We are also going to include this document on IPMA HR's website. We also have a dedicated landing page for COVID-19 where we have a recording of our weekly conference calls that you can watch and go back to. We have links to the league's documents, to the state's documents as well, and also national resources. We've had a webinar from the Department of Labor, a local representative, that he's taken his time to explain what the Family First Coronavirus Response Act leave means and how we determine that. So a lot of good information here. The last thing I'm going to do is at the very end of the document, we included a list of resources and templates that you might be interested in as an organization. As you can see, there was a lot of work put into this. Okay, so we have a template for reasonable accommodation request form. So sometimes your employees may not want to come back to work, and that could fall into the American with Disabilities Act. They have a reasonable request, and as a city or a county or a town, how do you handle that? And so we have a request form or a medical inquiry form. Like I said, HR are not medical experts, nor do we want to be, but we need medical information from employees to know how to support them. We have some flow charts and some leave request forms as well. Also, we'd like organizations to consider continue working from home or working at home. So this is just good information, also contact information from myself and from other board members. We're happy to help in whatever way that we can.
Hey, great. Thank you, David. That was wonderful. And again, this will be available through, we'll send it out with our email today, and the link out, I guess it'll just be a link for that document. And this addresses everything from dealing with your fragile, I guess it's your fragile employees, dealing with people that are over the hill, and people like myself, and people that might have other issues. That presents a whole different set of problems when it deals with coronavirus. And I think you can read that through that. And again, as Dave mentioned at the very beginning, we understand that we cannot create this guideline for everyone, but we think that everything's in there that you need to consider when it comes to HR practices. And so these guys have been amazing. They've been professional, and I think you'll all get a lot of value out of just clicking on that link and spending some time reading through that. And you can see it covers us from red to green. And so thank you to you and your colleagues for putting that together. And I might also mention that not only people from IPMA HR in there, we also had a couple members from UCMA helping us out, the City Managers Association, and just a great deal of work went into this. So thank you. And I don't have, somebody just said over the hill, I don't see a hill. I'm still climbing it. Anyway, that's all we have for today. I think a lot of your questions we've answered online as we've gone. And I just want to thank all of our panelists and all of you that have tuned in today to our town hall meeting. Thank you. Before we close off, I just want to mention that Monday afternoon, we will continue our town hall meetings on Monday that deal with the financial aspects of dealing with the COVID-19 response. And so tune in for that, and we have a great program for you planned then too. So thank you and good afternoon.